Welcome to the Intimate Marriage Podcast, where I teach educated, successful couples how to have incredible, passionate relationships so that you can stop compromising and start feeling fully alive in your relationship. I'm Alexandra Stockwell, aka the Intimacy Doctor. I'm a physician, a relationship and intimacy coach, and I'm an intimate marriage expert. My husband and I have been married for 27 years. We have 4 children and full professional lives, and we've created an amazing marriage. I've shown hundreds of couples how to do so as well. So if you want to deepen your understanding of your own relationship and learn to access new heights of emotional, sensual, and erotic intimacy, you're in the right place. I will show you how. Now, let's dive in.
How often do you have sex? How often do you think you're supposed to have sex? How often does your spouse think you should have sex? These are questions that come up actually fairly often. People don't always actually say them out loud, but these are questions that people think about often, and I'm going to give you my answers. But first, let's read a review. This is on iTunes. I am binging this podcast. Alexandra is the real deal. Love the candid and real-life expertise you share. Thank you. You are so welcome. And thank you so much for leaving that review. It really makes a difference for other people who are checking out podcasts and trying to decide what to listen to. And I have to say that while I am recording, I currently have 96 ratings on iTunes. So if you listen on another platform, Spotify, Google, Amazon, wherever it is, please leave me a rating and a review where you listen. And if you're on iTunes, will you be somebody who helps me get to 100? I would be so excited for, as you listen, for you to be the 97th or 98th or 99th or 100th reviewer. So please, if you're not driving, just pull out your phone and leave me a rating and review. I really would be grateful. I'm in a lot of different Facebook groups with mostly this only comes up in Facebook groups that I'm in with women. I'm not saying that men don't have these questions. They often actually have a lot of conviction about it. But anyway, for me, the experience is with women who say, either my husband really doesn't care that much, we could have sex 3 times a year and he'd be happy, but I feel like that's not normal. I want it more often. And then there are the women who say, I'm okay having sex twice a week. I'm actually happy with that, but my husband wants it every day, which of course leads to tension, resentment, insecurity, and more. Let's just zoom way out of those very complicated conversations and experiences and just consider rather objectively the question, how often do couples have sex? Or rather, not how often, but how often should they? What is normal? And let me first say, there is no answer to this question objectively. What is good for you is what you're both satisfied with. If you want to be having sex every day or 3 times a day for however many decades you keep that up, well, enjoy. And if you want to taper off and have sex once a month because that's when you have time to create a really romantic, gratifying, leisurely experience with one another, well, wonderful. For me, I am way more focused on the quality of the sex than I am the frequency. However, those two are actually extremely related, because if you're not having sex that you enjoy, why would you want more of it? And I think a lot of the times when in a heteronormative, long-lasting marriage, as I've indicated earlier, I definitely see where the man's libido tapers off and the woman's is vibrant and robust. And coming into bloom. However, the more stereotypical and also sometimes actual experience is that the man wants it far more often, and his wife is into it, but not as often as he is. And so he thinks there's something wrong with her. And I just want to say, if you are listening and you are a man and you want more sex with your wife, don't beg, don't ask, don't expect, don't judge. None of those are helpful, and they certainly aren't a turn on. If that's you and you have a lot of desire, put your attention into discovering what would make the experience more appealing for your woman. Does she want more romance? Does she want more flirtation? Does she want to be touched in different ways or more varied ways? And if you ask her, maybe she has answers for you, and actually maybe she doesn't, either because it's uncomfortable to discuss, or she thinks it's taboo, or she has yet to discover that for herself. And actually, I'm not really going in this direction in this episode, but let me also say that if you want more sex with your beloved, then consider being more helpful with household responsibilities. It's an amazing thing how when horny husband does the dishes and puts the kids to bed, that suddenly it turns out his wife is actually far more interested than he might have realized before, because all the tasks at home and at work are absolutely passion killers. And I've done other episodes going in that direction, but I'm really sticking more explicitly with the sexual experience directly in this episode. So again, if you want more sex than you're having, put your attention into discovering what would delight her, what would make the experience irresistible, what would make it something that she can't wait to experience. Yes, it's definitely on you, if you're a woman in this situation, to discover what would make it pleasurable. And it may well be that a lot of that exploration is something you do on your own. But if you are a husband yearning for sex in this way, get humble and start learning. Notice what are the things that light her up. Notice what gets her to smile. Notice what gets her to slow down and breathe more deeply and be more present with you. Become a student of your woman's body and soul. That is the singular best route to having more sex. Now, if you're a woman and you want more of it, the answer is a little bit more mysterious, I would say. But in my experience, one of the main things that holds a man back in his libido, other than if there's a bona fide medical condition, is fear of disappointing you, fear that he won't be the fantastic lover that I was describing moments ago. And rather than needing to face what that feels like, to want to bring pleasure to a woman you love and not be able to, be afraid you'll lose your erection, rather than dealing with the profound vulnerability of not succeeding the way you want, it's just easier to kind of decline, essentially be numb and compromise and just avoid the intensity and vulnerability that is inherent in going for it when you're not really sure how it's going to turn out. So if you're a woman wanting more sex like this, put your attention on being more respectful towards your man, less critical, less cutting, less resentful. Come with your pleasure and become irresistible yourself. And of course, the two of you can have conversations about it. Discover what really is going on below the surface. And let me just say that if you'd like to have such a conversation and you don't feel equipped, I can't say enough about the Aligned and Hot Marriage program. It's my online independent study program, which is not actually about sex. But if you go through that curriculum, which many couples do as a date night activity. It's fun, it's engaging. It's not this like heavy, burdensome thing. It's quite profound and transformational and delightful. And you will acquire the skills to be able to be present with one another and go into conversational geography that you've previously avoided. So if you want to have this kind of communication with your spouse and talk about what could really change in how you approach sex and what happens during sex and after, then the Aligned and Hot Marriage will guide you into profound alignment, which then sets you up to heat up your marriage as well. Anyway, continuing on with considerations about how much sex is normal, healthy, and appropriate, there are so many beliefs people have which really get in the way of having the authentic erotic experiences that are available when you strip away should, strip away taboo. In fact, I'm reminded of someone who had been a nurse practitioner for a long time, definitely medically savvy and educated. And we met in a social context and she heard what I do. And she said, really? Like, are people in their 60s still having sex? Like, doesn't that taper off? Well, that is a great question. Yes, it definitely tapers off for many couples. But is that normal? Is that healthy? Is that optimal? No, of course not. There are so many studies that show the incredible benefits of having an active sex life in terms of mood and fitness and gratification in the marriage and longevity, quality of life. There are all these great reasons. Become more skillful in making love with one another. The motivator is desire and pleasure, even if there's all this research to show that, it's good for health, it's good for your financial success, it's good for professional success, it's good for family life, it's good for your children, but none of those actually motivate. What motivates is that it feels incredible and you get to feel connected in this incredible way with your partner. Now, another factor in how often couples have sex with one another, well, it's related to what I've said, which has to do with the quality of what the experience is. And Ian Kerner, who wrote the book, She Comes First, I don't know if he did a study or he referred to a study, but anyway, from him, I read that there was a study with 3,341 respondents, and 50% of them said that they were bored during sex. If you're bored during sex, why would you be having it? When I'm talking about the normal, healthy, native frequency of making love and having erotic adventures together and tenderness and intimacy and sensuality and pleasure, that's based on having those experiences be growth-oriented, meaning you continue to grow your skills, you grow your awareness of your own body and your partner's body, and you discover things together. If you're bored or what you're doing with one another is the same old, of course it's not going to happen. So why would you do something that, if the food doesn't taste good, you still need to eat in order to have enough nutrition to fuel your life. If you're having, you don't enjoy your work, but you need your income, then of course you're going to still do it. But if you don't actually enjoy the sex you're having, why would you do it? I'm obviously not talking the context of relationships where there's abuse or toxicity and fear, or it's highly transactional when it comes to the bedroom. I'm talking about the kind of sex that you would want more of. So my answer to this question, how often is it, like, what's the normal frequency for having sex? Well, I want to invite you to instead consider the question, how often are we having wonderful sex? How often are we having the kind of sexual experiences that we both want more of? And if the answer is not very often, then I invite you to learn how to make the experiences the kind that you would want more of, so that your normal feels really good to both of you, whatever that frequency actually turns out to be. Let me tell you that if you are motivated and both of you are devoted to creating more pleasure, more joy, more gratification, and really nourishing sexual experiences with one another, and you're not sure how to start, or you're not sure how to proceed further, by all means, message me on social media or the contact form on my website, alexandrastockwell.com, and reach out. Because if you are motivated, you are into learning and growing, and you're willing to do the work to become the kind of person who has really gratifying, extraordinary sex, then I would love to work with you. And if you are somebody who just wants your partner to change, if you're not willing to really be humble enough to learn how to be an extraordinary lover, then I suggest you reach out to somebody else. But if you are really willing to invest and become the kind of person who knows how to grow in the realm of sensuality and sexual intimacy, well, I would love to show you how. So reach out to me. And either way, if you and your spouse have a difference of opinion about how often you, quote, should be having sex, share this episode with your spouse and then have a conversation together. It could be quite radical, quite a revelation, and so very worthwhile. And if you're somebody who knows someone who isn't having really good sexual experiences, share this episode with them so that they can understand why that is and what they might like to do to change that.